and then we'll talk a little bit and get to doodling. I hope you do too.
Hey there.
Hey, hi.
Hi, everybody. I'm really honored to be here with Doodle, with the Doodle, the Doodle. It's a great honor. So thank you very much, Ryan. Thanks
Okay.
for having me here.
Great. All right.
Oh, here, I'm going to turn the phone so you can see my doodle.
Okay, let's go ahead. I'm gonna turn my phone too, and
Wait,
and
I'm
then
trying to get it.
we'll get to drawing.
Okay.
Okay, hold on.
Wait,
All
can
right.
you see? I can't see, so I don't have a monitor.
Oh, okay. That's all right.
I mean, I can't see. Can you see what I'm drawing?
I think you should. Yeah. Hold on.
Is that better?
I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready. It takes me a while to adjust my apparatus.
Oh, okay.
I mean, and I'm talking about my phone.
Like this?
So now, Ian, your phone is a little pixelated. So I'm wondering,
is that better?
Typical? Yeah.
No, I don't know. I'm drawing with 2 pens.
Okay, sounds
to
good.
give it a kind of just because I think it's more forgiving.
Okay.
Maybe the line will be more the mistakes will seem more intentional.
Okay, so it sounds like you're giving us. Now, Ian, I have a question for you.
Oh yeah, sure.
Did you go to art school? Is that right?
I went to an art school, but the art school doesn't exist anymore. It was demolished after I left. Kind of like the Exorcist house, I guess. But I've always felt like I play rock and roll music, and I always feel like that's really important. If you're going to be in a rock and roll group, you should go to art school.
Yeah, I think a lot of bands have come out of art school, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
What do you think art school does to music?
Well, I think that it's sort of, I think art school is like a holdover from a different, era when, like doodling and paint was kind of a heroic version of like labor or something, and then that kind of changed, and then rock and roll became that thing. But there wasn't rock and roll schools when I was young, so there was just these art schools. But now there's these rock and roll schools, like School of Rock, that was dramatized by the Hollywood film School of Rock, and so now art schools are kind of irrelevant, and art schools are more, I don't know, they're more conceptual or something. I don't know. But when I was a lad, they served a different function. Well, you're really out doodling me here. I don't know. No,
Ian, this is not a competition.
Well, everything in the United States of America is a competition.
Okay.
Because we're trained to be the best.
I'll give you that. No, I work really fast, and I use a marker, and I don't, and I do this every Friday.
Oh, that's true. I haven't doodled in a while, actually.
You haven't?
But do you think that the first dollar bill was kind of the outgrowth of some doodling?
Oh, you mean some of that fancy stuff that they do with the engraving around it? Like
yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I always thought that was so that it was hard to make them counterfeit. I thought
it was esoteric. Esoteric doodling.
You just thought, well, it is kind of like that, because doodling has a decorative maybe quality in a way, in that it doesn't have to be anything. It's just like these marks. But yeah, I could kind of see that decoration and doodling are similar in a way, because they're not really about meaning. You're not trying to get any meaning out of it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I don't know. That question is a good one.
Did you go to art school?
I did go to art school. I went to Cal Arts, and I ended up going in there as a painting, and I ended up coming out as kind of I was doing performance art before I went to Cal Arts, and then I became a painter because I probably was like reacting against being highly conceptual because it was a very conceptual school. So I think I was kind of going back to painting as a way of like rebelling.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, and I did like basically artwork, paintings that looked like performances. I used myself in them, and yeah. And then it was funny because once I got out of school, I found that I wanted to work more conceptually. So somehow what they taught me stuck with me. And, but it was only after the fact, so I kind of, as like Nietzsche says, you start to stink of your chains. It's the very thing I rebelled against I started to become once I left art school. So,
Yeah.
but, and there were some good things. There was philosophy courses that I liked taking, and I liked feeling smart. I think school made me feel smart. And then actually when I got out of it, I realized that I was still the same person, and I was still as dumb as ever.
Do you think that you're really the smartest when you're 11?
Now that's a loaded question. It sounds like you have an opinion about that. Do you feel like you're the smartest?
It's nothing, it's not developed, but I think people are maybe the smartest when they're 11.
Now, but there's also the frontal cortex, right? That doesn't develop in men until like they're in their late 20s. So, or that it starts to, although I'm sure we have some brain folks out there who want to,
correct.
Who would like to correct us. But I believe that the frontal cortex, which is still developing in men into their 20s, but I don't know. So I don't know. I mean, so you can be really smart without any kind of organizing abilities, you know.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah.
So you'd probably be like really smart, but not a bureaucrat.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Well, so what is there like? Are there doodling? Is there some kind of doodle analysis, like handwriting analysis, or?
I don't know. That's another good question for our gang out in the ether, because I really don't know if you can analyze doodles. You can certainly see like there's things that I would think there's things that I repeat over and over, or things that I like to keep going back to, you know. But I don't know. These are good questions. So I have, so one of the things I thought was really interesting about something that you've done recently. So so if folks aren't familiar with Ian's work, you have 3 books out, and you write a lot about kind of could it be like philosophy and history of music? Is that what?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but also too, you've come out with kind of like an anti-social media project called, and I'm calling it anti-social media on social media, which is really funny, but called Cellophane Flag.
Yes.
And sometimes I accidentally call it Cellophane Fag, but I know it's Cellophane Flag. Although I would love to be a cellophane flag. That would be very interesting.
Well, yeah. It's printed on North American newsprint, and it's just an attempt to kind of find the post-digital diaspora. We're just sort of mapping out a community for when the whole digital cellular thing, as fun as it is, for when it collapses.
Right.
And just sort of probably like, I don't know, like the Nazi generals were all, hiding the artwork or whatever,
Right.
when the Russian armies were bearing down on Berlin. We got to figure out the next step. I mean, not that we're the Nazi generals, but when you you see Armageddon coming. You see it's you know, the cataclysm. I mean, this digital platform just can't last that much longer, because it's like everybody's got their, you know, their banking information floating in the ether. It just seems too dangerous and too crazy. It's not really healthy for anybody. And I think that the young generation, the people who are 11 years old right now, are gonna recognize that that it's just not a way that anybody should really be living. You know, that it's and so I think that they are gonna see the Cellophane Flag, and they're gonna say, hey, maybe this is kind of a strategy, you know, a way out, a kind of something tactile, a way that we can communicate, which isn't perverted, you know, because it's not on the oligarchs' platform, you know, like a way to communicate that is just I don't know, just sort of, you know, free of, you know, pop-up ads and surveillance marketing, and, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, when I worked with TikTok, when I worked with teenagers, at the time that I was working, the big thing was that they would get on Snapchat, and that was because they couldn't really be traced. There was no record that was left, I guess. And so parents couldn't really monitor them, if I remember correctly. So that was kind of like the idea was that somehow, you know, you don't leave a trail, right?
Yeah.
And
no chemtrails.
Yeah, no chemtrails.
I mean, it's, you know, because we're, you know, we're dealing with, you know, doodling is, of course, the highest form of art, you know, and
you're just saying that.
No, it is, and I mean, once it was considered marble statues, and then people went through the whole big, you know, the thing where you covered up Central Park. What's that called? Yeah.
Oh, Jean-Claude and Christo.
But now it's recognized that doodling is really where it's at. But anyway, whatever it is, whatever we're doing in art, you know, we have to remember that art is almost indistinct from the CIA. You know, it's like it's always been in its American phase. The art world has always been very much in bed with the, you know, the CIA. So anything that happens in the art world is you know, being kind of, it's, you know, there's a lot of, you know, nefarious stuff happening, you know, with linguistic, you know what I mean, like you know, social programming and stuff. So
you're saying that art is part of CIA's social programming.
Well, you know, when the CIA started, it's like the late 40s. It's right when all the surrealists moved to New York, and they, you know, they had to, you know, blah blah blah, and you know, that's when New York became the center of the art world for the first time. You know, it was a great opportunity for the Americans as they were, you know, expand, you know, because it was the American century, and you know, suddenly, you know, the victory in World War II gave the United States the pretext to, you know, kind of colonize the earth, and they needed, you know, every weapon, you know, at their disposal, and one of them was the art, you know, and you know, everybody talks about, oh well, Jackson Pollock was, you know, financed by the CIA, but it's like, why do we think that it would have stopped in 1952, you know?
So who do we think is financed now by the CIA? What artists?
I mean, all of it.
All of it.
Certainly,
there's artists out there that I'm kind of like, now, how did they get the career they got so fast?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, everybody, you know, Jackson Pollock, we can, you know, we like him and he's great, but you know, there were probably a lot of, you know, also Rands who are also great. You know, it's like, but you know, so it's basically, you know, you just have to wonder, well, which kind of thought programs that are going on, that are, you know, coming out of the art world and academia, are really are something that the CIA really loves, you know. So maybe a lot of this kind of cannibalism, you know, that we're seeing in the, you know, within, you know, where the rank and file here, it's really hard to hold this phone and doodle.
I know. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's not your fault. whoever invented this technology was not doodling.
They weren't thinking about how to do it with one hand. Well, and also
No.
too, if you get tired, I understand about that. But so in terms of the cellophane flag, one of the things that you also do with this is there was a whole essay on Instagram and social media, and what I felt was really interesting was the comment you made about how there's no need to sleep with your partner because you've got your phone now. And do you remember writing that? Or
Oh yeah, I do. I remember it.
And it's such an interesting thing, which is that the phone somehow dematerializes not just, that we put more and more of our assets, more and more of our culture into phones, but we also are putting more and more of our relationships into phones to the point where they may be more satisfying than actually having a physical relationship with someone. Is that what you were thinking about?
Absolutely.
Which is very interesting, because one of the things I had just read was that that birth rates are going down, that actually fertility in both women and men, but men especially, have gone way down since the beginning, or since last century. And that, whether it's, stuff in the environment, but it could easily be just that we have phones.
Oh yeah.
And we're not producing, we're not as fertile now because the phones are
well, the phones are very fertile. The phones are very fecund. They're extreme. They're like they're just they're fertilizing everything. But it just but we're birthing bots and social bots and these different like a person used to have children to work the farm, and now we create a bot to go do what we need it to do or whatever. There's probably a doodle bot. You could probably create a bot that just doodled all day, and that would be an exponent of your mission, your mission to spread doodling across the world. You're kind of like a Johnny Doodle seed.
A Johnny Doodle seed. Oh my God. I feel like doodles are just kind of viral, that they will never go away because they're always around, and people just have to people just have to take the time. It's really about time, for me. Like and I think if you're nervous enough or if you're fidgety enough, the doodle will find you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that also is kind of interesting about Cellophane Flag is that it seems to be kind of for me, it seems to be kind of not of this time. So it's strange because as an artist, I'm always thinking like, well, how do I make my stuff relevant to what people are going through today? And even though you've already talked about how it is relevant in terms of a reaction, also the look of it and some of the ways that it delivers its philosophy seem kind of from another time.
Thank you.
And I'm just curious, do you think about history a lot, or how does that fit into kind of what you're up to?
Alexandra Cabral really helps with the layout and the look of it, and we're both really so we are both really into just independent underground newspapers. So we're trying not for it to not look like a fanzine, but rather like an underground broadsheet, and if you think about the 60s or the 70s, that era was very much a kind of revival era for the 30s, of the 30s, essentially. It's like, the 60s is really just a big nostalgia. It's like a big retro, it was a retro decade, really. It was like people kind of reliving the 30s, so you have folk music, which is, the Dust Bowl. So people are really into the Dust Bowl, and then there's a lot of activism, which was a big thing in the 30s with the Communist Party and all that stuff, and and right now we're entering, or we're in a new depression, you know, and you can really see we're just in this depression, and
Yeah,
that's why
yeah.
there's this affinity for fascism and for this extremism and sexual, this kind of, if you think about the depression, the last big depression that was called the depression, there was the Hollywood Code. There was a real, there's a lot of kind of,
There's
repression, and so
yeah.
so
There's like
so
a
so
tightening of sexuality, a tightening of expressiveness, a want
exactly.
to control. Yeah, like
And
if you look at the kind of art that Trump liked, it was realism, and I think realism is tied very much to, um,
gone.
yeah, well, fascism in some ways too, in terms of everything has to be literal. You
No
can't.
more degenerate art. They hated
Yeah,
degenerate art, and yeah, and they hated degenerates. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, so the cellophane flag, it's just, we are of our era, because the underground newspapers of the 60s, they were kind of they were also referring to this kind of depression thing, and that's kind of where we're at. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's where nobody's talking about this extraordinary amount of homelessness, and because the CIA runs the art world and runs social media and stuff. It's our focus isn't on homelessness or the desperation of the economic situation for people, but it's rather on this kind of things like I don't know, different things.
yeah. It's actually seems to be that our culture is really focused on being distracted, which I'm guilty of too. Like I want to be distracted, and I don't want to have to think about these issues because I'm faced with them much more than I ever was before, and I'm in some ways being asked to respond to them. And there's a feeling kind of I think there's a feeling with media that people are giving you opportunities to respond to all sorts of urgent, human situations. And then you're in this really awkward decision when you're on your phone, whether you give money, Venmo some reparations, whether you post something that kind of is about your own politics, whether you condemn someone for something they've done. And at times, I don't know if we were so faced with this country's problems in such a overt way. I mean, television did that when I was a kid. I mean, every every dinner, I felt like every dinner was occupied by Vietnam. I mean, we could watch footage of Vietnam on the television while we were eating dinner, And so I think there's I think a natural want to kind of escape it. But at the same time, can you escape it? Can So anyway, that was just my thoughts about it. But let me look at
Um, I I agree.
It's
I
hard, isn't it
agree,
hard? It's hard to
but
draw and talk about stuff
it's
like this.
really
I know.
extraordinary. It's a Herculean task that
It really is.
luckily we're like Herculean.
Well,
Luckily we're
yeah.
like demi gods. But
No, I
anyway,
think yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, it's a well. So anyway, that's the thing. So we are yeah. So the cellophane flag. It's a reaction to all that. It's a reaction to this kind of this very oppressive oligarchs echo chamber that we're all kind of, that insists that we mediate every experience and every interaction through they've
Right.
they're devising all every pretty much everything you do. And I can't help but think how discriminatory it is that everybody has to communicate every idea or every action through this expensive device.
Right.
And
Yeah.
especially because it's a lot of people who don't have very good eyesight, or aren't very good at using it. And I mean, it's really like
It's
but anyway, yeah.
yeah,
So
I I would definitely agree. I feel like sometimes I feel like if I'm looking at my screen for way too um long, that I've actually shrunk myself and like ran around like a miniature maze. And then all of a sudden I come away from my phone. I felt like I've lived a whole lifetime, and then I'm in the physical world and I don't sometimes know exactly how to relate to it. And I don't think I'm schizophrenic. I do think that the experience of using phones is physically changing our perceptions in a really interesting way. And so I find that some of the things that you're doing with Cellophane Flag, which is that it's a large format, it's very physical, like newsprint. There's a real evocative quality for newsprint. Um, it's also cheap to put together, so there's something about that something's not expensive and yet it has elite thinking in it. So there's a lot of interesting um, really interesting things that are happening for me, and I
well,
and
thank you.
yeah, it just keeps reminding me of experiences I had kind of pre-phone, and even the voices that are being used, and the celebration of kind of freak culture is what I would call it. Like celebration of idiosyncratic culture is it's really refreshing. And
Well, thank you.
yeah. And so, and it just led me to think too, like, what are we losing by putting everything online? And I think, you've said that really well.
Well, one thing that we're losing is any kind of agency over what's going to be important, because everything can be excised from the internet. The oligarch can just press a button and erase entire like let's say they decide that you know Bresson is a bad guy or something. They can just erase all of Bresson's films and nobody can ever see them again because they don't actually exist. And the so, I mean, there's something beautiful about it, because in a way, like, well, 20 years of human endeavor can just be, will necessarily just vanish without a trace. The entire internet era of creative, like photography, film, music, it's all on some hard drive. And at a certain point, they won't make the cord anymore, and you won't be able to access what's on the hard drive. And it'll be like decades of work that's gone. And if you think about ancient Sparta, they had a whole culture, but they didn't put it in marble. And so the Athenians are the ones we remember, but the Spartans are kind of like, well, I guess they just lived in a shed. You know what I mean? Because they didn't put their stuff, and maybe they had smartphones. Maybe
Well,
the Spartans had
maybe it was the
smartphones.
first smartphone, and it's just that their culture got sucked into it. I remember
Exactly.
all the pictures of Sparta in my history book when I was a kid, they were kind of more like the jocks. I always felt like they were like more athletic. It was kind of like the Olympics. They all lived in an Olympic camp or something like that. That's my remember. That's all I remember of them. The other thing I was thinking about while you were talking was that it's not just that all the culture that we're creating right now can be wiped out. Because I'm a giant fan of cable access that came out in the 80s, and just like some of the craziest shows were on there, and like, where do you find them now, right? So I'm
Yeah.
wondering what will happen, for instance, to Doodle with Me. At some point, it will be vanished. It will be not anything that everyone will remember as fondly as they do now.
Listen, Ryan, that's not going to happen. We're not going
It's
to let it
gonna
happen.
happen. It's gonna
That's
happen.
crazy. This is
It's crazy talk.
this
But
is
I think the real thing that is happening is that our attention is so fatigued that everything has been given equal urgency. So every single thing on our phone is equal and has equal urgency for us. But we can easily scroll to the next urgent thing. And so it is really about this kind of culture of urgency that doesn't know how to prioritize or say that certain things are of value to it. You know what I mean? Like the
yes.
old the old
Things are
kind of
very it's equality. You know, it's like
Yeah.
it's true. You know, it's like yeah, yeah. It's, except that I think that Oprah Winfrey's interview with the with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle is.
That was
I
really
think that's
important.
bigger. That's bigger.
That was urgent. That was urgent. I mean, it's urgent, but not surprising. like, what do people say? You know, basically, the British family invented racism anyway. So what's the surprise? But anyway, um, you know, we're out of time.
Oh my God. Well, you know why? Because I mean, that felt very, very sudden. It
It
felt very
did.
sudden.
I'm sorry. No, it's usually it has nothing to do with what we were talking about. The Queen did not like ring me and say, "You better cut this off right now. We can't talk
It,
about this subject."
it was, who was it then?
It was the Queen within me. It was my inner Queen. My inner Queen was telling me that.
Cool.
No, what it was is the clock, because Doodle with me is only 30 minutes, and there's a part of me that is a time fascist, and I believe that it will be more valuable if we end on time.
You
So
know what they say? Always leave them wanting more.
always leave them wanting more. But boy, we gave
First
them
rule, first rule of showbiz.
Ian, I think we've given them a lot tonight. I think that everyone is going to go and look up the CIA right after this.
Who are the CIA?
Who are these guys? So what I do next
Okay.
is I just switch up my phone and we can say goodbye if you want face to face, or
Oh yeah.
if that's
Hold on.
not
Let
what
me
you
see if I
want.
can figure it out. Hold on. Oh, here. Hey.
Hey,
See
thank you
everybody.
very much. Thanks for being my guest.
Hi.
Hey,
Bye.
thanks, Alice.
See ya.
Bye. All right. So I'm going to I think I'm supposed to let you go now. Oh, okay. He's left. All right, everybody. So thank you for joining me. It was great to have you here. Always welcome. Please come again. Next Friday, we'll be with Nancy Agabian, who is a writer and a good close friend. And we're going to be talking, the theme is called Graveyard Muse, and we're going to be talking about museums and the dead. And so I hope that you will join me. And anyway, you never know exactly what you're going to get when you tune in, so we may not talk about any of those things. But I do appreciate your company. I do appreciate you all doodling with me, and this is just the time that we get to do together. So have a great week, and I will see you next Friday. This will also be posted on my IGTV archive. If you've just come in, you can always watch them later. At this point, I have about 10 to debrief. Anyway, mwah, love you all, and I hope that you have a lovely evening.